Hi, I'm Mike Benoit. This is a Tyranny Busters video. Today's video is on the jury and your duties, rights, and obligations as a juror. And the reason we call this Tyranny Busters is because Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson made a quote once, had to do with swearing an eternal hostility upon the altar of God over every form of tyranny upon the mind of man. And what he was talking about was really brainwashing, mind control, or lies and deceit used to control your mind and get you to do things that somebody wants you to do. And when we talk about the jury and just what your duties are as a juror, we're going to refer back to the Constitution and the definitions that were in vogue at that time when the Constitution was written. To start with, we're going to make a little reference to Frederick Bastiat and the book The Law. Frederick Bastiat wrote this book in 1850, and he wrote it as a response to Karl Marx and Karl Marx's writings about socialism. And in there, it's a very quick, short book. I recommend that you get it and read it. But in there is the essence of what the law is, and that's what we need to be doing as a juror, is upholding what is real law. He said, what then is law? It's the collective organization of the individual right to lawful defense. And that sums it up pretty much in a nutshell. Anything other than that really isn't the law. It's the perversion of the law. And so when you're sitting on a jury and you're dealing with somebody who's been accused of a crime by the government, please keep in mind, is this really a law that he's being prosecuted for? Is this person violated somebody's individual rights? And in that premise, we're going to switch now to the Fully Informed Jury Association and the information brought to us by that association, and another quote from Thomas Jefferson. He said that I consider trial by jury as the only anchor yet devised by man which a government can be held to the principles of its constitution. And that's important because if you want the government, and especially in this country, to adhere to the Constitution, you find that the legislature isn't doing it, you find that the president isn't doing it, and you find that the judicial branch of government isn't doing it, then you as a juror can insist that they do it. So that's the mission of the Fully Informed Jury Association, and that is to let people know their rights and their powers and their duties as a juror. And the highest and best function of the jury is to protect fellow citizens from tyrannical prosecutions and bad laws unfairly imposed by government. Why are the juries important? Protect society from dangerous individuals, protect individuals from unjust prosecutions, have duty and responsibility to render a just verdict based on your conscience, and have an unalienable right to veto or nullify bad laws and unjust prosecutions. You cannot be punished for your verdict as a juror. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes in Horning versus District of Columbia said, the judge cannot direct a verdict. It is true, and the jury has the power to bring in the verdict in the teeth of both the law and the facts. That's not what you're going to be told by the judges predominantly in the judicial system today. They basically tell you that you can only judge the facts and that you have to take the law as given to them. It's not true. I'm going to skip from the PowerPoint here a little bit and just make a comment on my own. If you look in the Webster's 1828 dictionary, you can find it online, it says that a juror is a jury is a group of 12 persons who are empowered to judge the law as well as the facts in a case. So we go now into the modern day and what they're being taught in law school. People are taught that you can only judge the facts, you can't judge the law. And to me, this is pretty simple. I just go back, look at the definition at the time the Constitution was written, and it's the opposite of that. So who am I going to believe? I'm going to believe the dictionary and the Constitution itself. And what Jefferson said about the jury being an anchor against tyranny and government. So what are your duties as a juror? Well, you need to pay attention to all the witnesses and the evidence, consider all the facts and the fairness of the law being applied in the trial, listen respectfully to fellow jurors, vote your conscience even if you're the only juror who believes in your verdict. Do not change your verdict if you are pressured by fellow jurors or a judge. Render a just verdict. The most important thing to me there is vote your conscience. Taking into account the defendant is innocent until proven guilty, take the facts of the case, the credibility of the witnesses and the evidence, mitigating circumstances, fairness of the law's application in this trial. And again, if you agree with the law but you don't agree with the punishment, you think the punishment is way too severe, you can vote your conscience. You don't have to say, well, I got to go ahead and vote guilty here because, we don't want a government getting tyrannical in its application of punishment of laws. I think in the Constitution, you remember, we talked about cruel and unusual punishment. So, Martin Luther King once said, one may ask, how can you advocate breaking some laws and obeying others? The answer lies in the fact that there are two types of laws, just and unjust. If you reflect back to Bastiat in the law talks about the law is actually the individual's right of lawful defense of self, his property, and his liberty. And if you make something up and call it a law and it's not a law, then it's a perversion of the law. Martin Luther King talks about it as being unjust. One has not only a legal but moral responsibility to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. I would agree with St. Augustine that an unjust law is no law at all. Jurors are representatives of the people. And in fact, the term jury means trial by country in its Latin sense. So that when the founders, and way back all the way to the Magna Carta, when the concept that the jury's verdict had to be unanimous, that meant that everybody in the country would basically find this person guilty. So have no personal or government agenda. They should have no stake in the trial outcome and cannot be punished for their verdict. Serve as the conscience of the community. Jurors are representatives of the people. And in the courtroom, it's an interesting phenomenon. There's an individual usually, he's on trial, he's a person. Then you have the judge, who's an agent of the government. Then you have the prosecutor, who's an agent of the government. And even if the defendant has an attorney, that attorney is an agent of the government. You're the people as a juror. So it's like the government cannot get a prosecution of anybody unless they get consent of the country or the juror. John Adams, our second president, said it's not only the juror's right but his duty to find a verdict according to his own best understanding, judgment, and conscience, even though in direct opposition to the direction of the court. What does the American Jury Institute or the Fully Informed Jury Association do? It works to restore and protect the role of the juror and the institution of trial by jury. Distributes educational literature and provides a quarterly newsletter. The American Juror sponsors education seminars. The bottom line on this video is you can use this information to say, look, Judge, I know about the Fully Informed Jury Association, I'm going to vote my conscience. And you get out of the jury. But I'm asking you to do the opposite, especially if somebody's being tried for a crime that's really not a crime, it's a political crime, there's no victim. If we're tired of the government prosecuting people for disagreement with political policies, it's time to start setting our citizen free. And I'm hoping that you check this out and watch some additional videos brought to you by Tyranny Busters, because the power does lie with the people.